Well, my name is Joe Ratterman. I'm a pastor at Heartland Community Church. Specifically, I lead the high school ministry. It's called Movement. It meets on Wednesday nights. We're located right here in Olathe, Kansas, just outside of Kansas City. Yeah, I'd say when I started this role, there was kind of the sense in which it felt like I had to do all of the things. And for a while that worked, where I was trying to man welcome table and worship and tech and all the different elements. And it was after kind of a few moments where I just got burnt out from doing all the things that God started to kind of shift my thinking. And in doing so, kind of opened me up to some potential that I didn't recognize was there. In my inability to do all the things, I started having to hand things off, and quickly I started recognizing that these people that I was ministering to, these high school students, had enormous potential in and of themselves. My mindset began to shift from doing ministry for high school students to empowering students to do the work of ministry. Yeah, a testimony I'd love to share is the story of Garrett. Garrett was a student who wound up in our ministry, was invited by a friend, had no background in faith, literally zero. And talking with his dad in one of his first encounters, they just wanted a good experience for their son, and so they were glad that they were a part of something like this, but have no Christian background whatsoever. And it was over the course of several weeks of just being a part of small groups and sharing openly and vulnerably that the floodgates kind of opened in this kid's life. He just began sharing his past, his history of abuse, a divorce that was really challenging for him and for his family. And in the midst of that, Jesus met him. It was a fall retreat, and I remember kind of up towards the front of the stage looking out at the rows and just seeing this kid who was so strong and confident just bawling his eyes out in the midst of worship. And maybe what was even more beautiful was in that moment there was his small group, these guys that he had met week in and week out. They were wrapping their arms around him and holding him, and that same group that had been with him up until that point was just surrounding him in this really pivotal moment. Garrett was an all-star soccer player. That was his trajectory his entire life. It was soccer, 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 and when he encountered Jesus, Jesus sent him on a different trajectory. That same passion and energy that he had towards soccer, he began to devote towards his relationship with God, and he grew and grew fast. It was like there was a rocket attached to his back in his faith. And so he quickly just began reading his Bible. He began volunteering. He began a summer internship with us, and now he is exploring a calling to ministry. So just from no faith to exploring, inviting other people to come know Jesus, it's been amazing. And the people he's been reaching all along the way, like friends, and he uses TikTok and Instagram, constantly posting things about Jesus and inviting others to the same hope that he's experienced. So that's Garrett, and Garrett's just one. I think of a student like Reese. She grew up in the faith, but was just kind of an introverted, scared freshman who didn't feel like she had anything to offer. And then over the course of that first year of ministry, I began to invite her into the worship team. And next thing you know, she's leading the worship team, and she's been leading the 10 o'clock service for our main service here, week in and week out. To go from a place of not feeling like she's gifted to recognizing her gifting and calling to being empowered. It's just amazing what God is doing in some of these students. I think about a Reed who very similarly kind of grew up in the church but didn't have a place, who's wanting to be a youth pastor someday. And these kind of things are happening all the time in places that nobody else is looking, in places that nobody else is expecting. God is raising up young people to do the work of ministry. My hope is that as you hear some of these stories that you'd be encouraged, that in a season where it's felt like a lot of traditional church ministries have been on halt, God has been moving in some really significant ways. You might be just like some of those students, feeling like you don't have any potential or there's nothing that you have to offer, and all it takes is a moment with God to send you on a different trajectory, to recognize your potential, to leverage your giftings. Or maybe you're here and there's somebody in your life that you've maybe looked past, that you say, there's not a shot for that person, or I don't know what they would have to offer. And maybe my hope would be is that there'd be a shift in perspective, that you begin to see in them what only God can see, the new story that he's writing for them. I'd say a scripture that comes to mind as I think about some of these things is Ephesians 4:12, where it says he gave the apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, teachers to equip the saints for the work of ministry. I think those of us that are doing vocational ministry are at our best when we're equipping others to live out their faith. So when I think about the potential of, just me doing ministry for others is so limited in what I could accomplish. But when I began to think about equipping and empowering others for the work of ministry, my potential for impact just exploded. And I think that's God's dream for the church, is for us to see ourselves as equippers of others, to unlock the potential in others.